certification, their subject area, or their teaching certification has. So, any questions? Sure.
Quan, I had a couple. So we don't currently have a policy for adjunct teachers, correct?
We do not.
Okay.
We do not.
Do we have adjunct teachers, or we had?
We have one that we are looking to retain.
Okay.
Yes.
And what is there a pay scale for an adjunct teacher?
It allows us to typically, if someone cannot pass their teaching certification, we have to drop them to a sub or we have to dismiss them. This allows them to still teach, be able to teach as long as they have passed the subject area. There's 3 parts to the teaching certification, but if they are struggling with 2 and they pass the subject area, this allows them to still remain in the classroom as a teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
LaQuanda, for elementary and ESC that are required to have reading and ESOL endorsement, how does that apply with them?
It does not.
Okay, so they would not be included. Okay, that was my question.
Thank you, Mrs. Burrows. All right, going back to agenda item on work session number 2, 2025 legislative session policies. Mr. Sean Arnold, our general counsel, will be looking over 5 different policies. And the first one up is our cell phone policy for Lake Wales Charter Schools 2025. Mr. Arnold.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So you have before you 4 policies that were set out by the legislature this year that were mandated to be enacted. So the crux of the cell phone policy is basically no cell phone usage for K-8 and limited cell phone usage based on the educational direction or something like that from the teachers for students in grades 9 through 12. So we created a policy that looks like that. There are exceptions for it. The most common ones would be students who need it for health, safety, and welfare reasons, such as some students may have a cell phone and have a patch for diabetes or something on their arm that monitors their blood sugar or something along those lines. There may be a reason for it to be included in an IEP. There could be other medical directive from a doctor that would do that. It's not simply, please allow the student to have a cell phone. There has to be a medical reason for why the student would be entitled to have a cell phone. So that is a policy that's been set forth by the legislature, has been sent down to for not only school districts, but also for charter schools to follow. So based upon that, we prepared these policies for all of our clients and we sent them out for adoption by the governing boards of all of the different schools.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to B, instructional employee arrest policy.
Okay, so board members, this is another update to Florida law that occurred. The main change here was that there was it changes 2 things. There's a requirement for teachers to report arrests that occur within 48 hours for an expanded set of items now, which include additional misdemeanors as well as felonies. But the biggest change that occurred from this policy change is the fact that now if a teacher has been arrested for either a felony or one of these enumerated misdemeanors, that they have to be taken out of the classroom for 24 hours while it's pending. The old rule was that while the case was pending, they were allowed to stay in the classroom, and that has been changed now to have it where where they are removed until the case is either dismissed or resolved in some way, which could end up leading to their disqualification for being in the classroom if in the courtroom they're convicted or plead no contest to their felony or enumerated misdemeanor.
Any questions?
Yeah, real quick. I'm assuming these policies are effective this school year, right?
Yes, they are. They would be effective as of today if you were to go ahead and pass this. And in fact, frankly, they started 2 days ago, or they started yesterday, in essence, so that these are, in fact, the law, and the direction was that the governing boards enact a policy that is commensurate with this.
Any other questions? All right, we will go on to C, threat management policy.
Okay, thank you. This is an ever-evolving area where they make changes to the threat management policies, and this is basically establishing what would now be the school-based protocols for assessing and managing threats. There's behavioral threat assessment teams. There's a lot of other things that are in there. And there have been minor tweaks to the composition of the team, to the evaluation process, to documentation standards, to coordination with law enforcement and other health professionals as well. So that's the change that's here. Some of this is in effect now. Some of it goes into effect at the end of the school year. I apologize, the end of the calendar year.
Any questions? All right, thank you. Moving on to letter D, student welfare policy.
So this is a change so this is not necessarily a change. In some ways, I really believe this is just really more of a clarification to the law in some aspects. And there have been, probably for you, have been on the board for some years, you've seen a lot of discussion and legislative action around books, around education about sexual orientation, around these types of things in the classroom. And in essence, what it's done now is put together a framework for resolving these both at the school-based level, at the district level, and then potentially, if we're not able to do that during basically the 37 days that are encompassed in that now for all of these issues that have been addressed recently, that there would be an ability to file a lawsuit. There's changes that have to be, these notifications have to be done in the student handbook and parent communication and other things like that. I don't necessarily think that this is changing so much the threats of the school in regards to these types of things, because once these get called to the school's attention, first of all, these issues have been around for a few years now, so they should have settled down by now. And then secondly, in terms of there's a period of time which usually these matters are fairly easy to resolve. And so hopefully this is not something that is going to open up a Pandora's box of lawsuits against charter schools.
Discussion or questions? Thank you. Then moving on to letter E, we have Lake Wales section 1002.33, parens 24, parens FS compliance policy restriction on employment of relatives.
Okay, so this is a discussion item in terms of a policy that is more directed within our own system. And this is in regards to the idea about prohibited activity in terms of hiring, promotion, and other things along those lines. So basically, we're all, I think, pretty familiar with the ideas of nepotism and other things like that, and that you cannot directly supervise somebody that you're closely related to. And these standards change depending on which one of these different things are. So I can't give you like a blanket for every one of these ideas, but basically relatives or close relatives to you, that you cannot directly supervise them. If you're a board of trustee member, you cannot advocate for them to be hired, fired, promoted, or anything along those lines. And down to the principal level or below that level, you cannot directly supervise somebody that you have this type of close relationship with, either through they're either a blood relative or somebody that you, through marriage, you become related to. So in any event, what we have done is we have gone through and talked about this and updated the idea of things that are in here. And one of the things that is important for school trustees, governing board members of charter schools to realize is that there was a change several years ago to charter school law, and this is what I brought up in my discussions with Danny when he was there, with Raphael, with Ricky, and with Julie on this issue, is that the idea that just because you pass a budget every year, which includes pay to all of the folks that are within the school system, and that may include somebody who's a relative to you, that act of something that's frankly rather ministerial, which is that you're passing the budget based upon all the other factors that have to go into the budget, not so much that you're passing a budget that happens to have somebody that you're related to, that you did not engage in any of this activity. These types of things does not constitute the type of activity that would violate the statute. One thing that I've also put into here, which I think would be basically, I think for transparency for the board, I think transparency for the public and everything else like that, is an attestation that would be done by a trustee every year, that basically disclosing if they have any relative employed within the charter school system. And if there is a person who's been employed, that they affirm that they do not participate in their hiring, dismissal, performance evaluation, or operational management related to that employee each year. And I think that would satisfy the statute. There have been some discussions apparently to Polk County about this, and it's been brought up. And so I think that this is strengthening the processes that we already have in place. And having some discussions with folks, nothing was brought to my attention that seemed like it was something that was problematic. But I think that this is something that, in terms of the issue of transparency to the public and your relationship with your sponsor, that I think that an annual attestation from trustees would be there. And of course, if anybody has any information that this, type of thing is occurring, either at the trustee level, principal level, or anywhere down the line, that would be something that needs to be investigated, because that is prohibited activity. But I think that if the trustees were to have an attestation every year that they're not engaging in this, I think that should be sufficient for transparency for the system.
Discussion. Or questions?
I know how this works. Oh, it's on. This may not, I'm new to this. The one question that I have heard repeatedly from teachers is, when our charter system first started in 2004, I think, the teacher rep on the board had a vote. And years in, that was changed. And we were told that the reason it was changed is because we were voting on salaries. So, okay. I think a lot of teachers' question is, why can one teacher not have a vote, but board member spouses and or siblings can have a vote? So I think there's some question about that. And this may not be the time to ask that, but this feels like the most of. So I think there's just some question, why would it not be a conflict of interest for a spouse or a sibling to vote, but it would be a conflict of interest for one individual teacher to vote on behalf of the entire teaching staff of the system?
The reason being is that the charter statute states that you cannot be an employee of the school and be on the governing board.
Is that Florida charter statute, or is that what Lake Wales charter system wrote?
No, that's Florida charter statute. That applies to 200 plus of clients. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you think about it, you wouldn't, the principals, we had some legacy. So I've been doing this long enough before that rule went into effect, to where we had situations where we had the principal of the school was the CEO, was the governing board chair, was everything else like that. And basically the basic tenet in ethics law in Florida is that you can't be on two ends of a transaction. You cannot be on the board voting for things as well as being an employee of it. So if you look at any other structure, be it the mayor, be it, all kinds of other different situations, and some have some funky ways in which perhaps they get around it. But in the charter school law, it's very clear you cannot be an employee. There's no Polk County school teacher, current school teacher, who's on the school board. You're on both ends of the transaction. So if you think about it, if you gave the principal the ability to be on the board, they can vote for their increases of their salary. They can do all those different types of things. Perhaps if the system goes back to 2004, I started practicing in this area 2005, 2006. That change, I could be off by a few years, but was somewhere in the early 2010s.
Okay.
And so the law changed. We had a situation with a school that I was familiar with in Palm Beach County. Again, the principal was the governing board, was on the governing board, was the governing board chair, basically ran the whole school, was getting, frankly, an inordinate amount of money to be not that, you guys aren't worth it, but as principals, but it was really drowning the school. And they were basically on both ends of the transaction. So in any event, it's nothing aimed at Lake Wales. Every other regular charter school, every non-conversion charter school, every charter school in the state has to deal with this.
Okay. I think it's just helpful for teachers to know. I think there was some confusion over where that was Lake Wales Charter School Systems law or the state of Florida's law. So I think it's just helpful for teachers to know that's not specific just to us.
Yeah, and I'm happy, and if you would like, I'm happy to do like a whole history of this and write it out to you if that would be helpful for everybody to understand.
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Other discussion points or questions?
Sean, I just want to say thank you because I've spent my summer at Warner University navigating the impacts of legislation, and just knowing that this school system's in your hands, I have a new appreciation for what you do. So just thank you for all of the information and your input on our policies and things.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you. That's what you guys retain us to do, so we're happy to do it.
Yeah, as a final note, I would also like to say thank you in the help of navigating all of these different policies and also making sure that we are in compliance and being as transparent as possible when it comes to how we run and administer different issues within the Lake Wales Charter School System. So thank you, Attorney Arnold.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm late to the party. Trustee Thompson down here. But I do have a question. I was kind of catching the back end of this discussion. Could the teacher rep not recuse themselves from the vote on salary and vote on any other business? No?
It's straight up prohibition against anything. They can't vote. They're not. You can't be on the board and be an employee.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're a teacher, you were the custodial staff, or you're the principal. It's no employee of the school can be on the governing board. You could be a coach. You could be whatever. It doesn't matter if you're an employee of the school.
Okay.
You can't be on the governing board. So,
And then is that just law concerning education systems, or does that apply to any official? Is that law that applies to officials?
So I can't speak for every single different type of system. What I was telling you, so if you go to section 1000, I apologize, 112.313.
Okay.
There is basically the code of ethics. And in that code of ethics is embedded the idea that you can't, so it runs right along the same concept that nobody on this governing board can have a contract with the school, right? So a trustee, if you own, if I was on your board, I could do legal work for you, but I could not be paid for it, right? The trustees cannot do business with the school. If you think about that for a moment, that's precisely what this same concept is that you cannot receive payment from the school and be on the board at the same time. So whether that's an outside business that you have an interest in, or your own job that you do all and you receive a salary for. It's the same concept. And they've applied it to charter schools, that in essence, you cannot derive compensation from the school. That's why you get paid nothing, right, from the school. You get reimbursed for reasonable expenses, but you don't get a salary for doing this, which is what makes you different than school board members. School board members get a salary, right, for being on the school board. But that's basically the same concept. So for anybody who's employed with the school, or they're a teacher and they don't understand why the teacher rep is there, it's the same concept, whether you agree with it or not. That's what it is.
No, understood. I sit as a city commissioner as well for Lake Wales, so
Yeah.
the confusion is, because technically I am also an employee of the city of Lake Wales,
Right.
and I'm also voting on, fiduciary things that actually apply to me. Okay, that's where my confusion. So I was wondering if this was just an education requirement, because I've never run into this outside of this theater. So anyway.
I think the difference is that there's a salary provided to city commissioners, to school board members, to lots of other different to Florida legislators, right? But the difference is that it says that you cannot receive that. So the other thing this is where charter schools are special. You're not I apologize. You're not quasi administrative in terms of the fact you're not a subsection of the government of Florida. You're a creation through legislation. In the process of doing that, if you go to the very beginning of the charter statute, it says that a charter statute has to be run by a 501c3.
Okay.
And 501c3 is not for profit. Now, some 501c3s do pay money to their government, to their board, but typically it's more of a stipend type of thing. There's not a super clean analogy, but it's right in the statute that you can't be there. And so there are analogies here. If you're on the city commission, you can't own a business that
Correct. Sure.
You can't do business with the city. It's basically all the same type of thing. And so they just basically said, as an employee, again, sometime in the early 2010s, I believe it was, that you cannot be employed at the school and be on the governing board.
Okay, thank you.
Sean, I have a question that just came to mind just in this discussion. So I just want to know for my benefit. So I understand if a trustee has a business that can't do business with Lake Wales charter schools. I own a mortgage company. Can a charter school employee get a mortgage through me and my company? I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think that you can. I mean, you may want to check with your own. I don't, from the charter school's perspective, I don't have any problem with it. I don't foresee any reason. If you're using your position to market, to do those types of things, to take advantage of the situation, or there are ways you could get yourself into trouble with it. But I don't think that if you're, have some places where it's a tiny town that has a charter school and, they happen to be there and, they're like they may only be one mortgage broker in town or something like that. I don't think that it's a problem. If you have any other questions, maybe just reach out to me separately and I'll get with you on it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, thank you so much, Attorney Arnold. We appreciate you working with us today.
Absolutely.
All right, we are on to agenda work session item number 4, the Systems Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan for 25-26, and I invite Kim Griffiths and Jen Barrows up to the podium, please.
Good afternoon. You've received in your packet the district comprehensive evidence-based reading plan.
Ms. Barrows, do you want to make sure the microphone's on?
Oh, can you hear me? Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Is that better? No, I know, exactly. Well, good afternoon once again, and I hope every one of you have had an opportunity to read the District Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan, better known as our SERP plan. We do this every year. So I don't know if Kevin, if you can put up our PowerPoint there. Sean, if you can stay in the background for a minute. Good afternoon to you. We're going to be turning the pages and changing lives with this reading plan. And I just want to say thank you to all of our amazing principals who put a lot of input into this plan with their data, their resources, their expenditures, what they're using for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 to support literacy and reading at Lake Hills Charter Schools. So thank you to the team for that.
Can you hear us okay? Okay, thank you. So once again, thank you for all the input from our principals. Kim, if you'll talk about the purpose.
So as for a requirement under Florida State Statute 6A-6.053, it's aligned to our EL best standards that we all are required to teach. It ensures that we're delivering the fidelity of our evidence-based practices, supports the Just Read statewide reading initiative, and it's grounded on the science of reading. And it ensures that we're following the multi-tiered support system, otherwise known as MTSS, K through 12.
Excellent. Before I go into the core goals that we have in the plan, thank you, Kevin. Go to the next slide. And one more to the core. Beautiful. Thank you so much. This is a systems plan along with Mrs. Conrad. She had an opportunity to view this plan over the summer and then did a shared document with our principals where she had some questions and they provided some input. So I do have to compliment her on her great questions and her emphasis on a systems plan. Core goals: provides high quality evidence-based reading instruction, kindergarten through 12th grade. It identifies and addresses reading deficiencies very early. And there are lots of protocols in place throughout the plan that address that. Supports struggling readers with targeted interventions, equips teachers through sustained professional development, ensures accountability for student reading outcomes. Next slide.
So the principals all worked at developing a plan that focused on our core reading programs. And with that, all schools do have state-approved or evidence-based programs for our students. In elementary school, we're looking at wonders and trophies. We're also looking at Common Lit and K through 6 through 12, as well as I believe BoxF is doing Savvis and Menbean at the high school level. Supplemental resources at our schools include the University of Florida UFly program, iReady, and Accelerated Reader known as AR. And our intervention programs do include Orton Gillingham, and we also use the Institute of Education Sciences by doing different types of interventions stated with best research practices. And finally, our assessment is we're always monitoring our state data, which includes STAR, Early STAR, and FAST.
Excellent. Go to the next slide, please. Some more components of reading. The professional development, which is a huge part that we stream all throughout kindergarten through 12th grade, which utilizes the science of reading and structured literacy. Third grade promotion, procedures for good cause exemptions is laid out in there, and that's a part of our summer reading camp that we held this summer at Polk Avenue. Family involvement, we've moved from Read 20 to Read 30, and problem-solving meetings to communicate the MTSS process, the multi-tiered support system. Pre-K, all schools work with DCF and the ELC program to utilize state-approved curriculum and make goals based on progress monitoring. So our students that are in pre-K, kindergarten through 12th grade, will be taking their progress monitoring 1, and our principals and our teachers and our reading coaches will be looking at that data to see who does need the interventions. Those level 1 students, what do they need? The students below the 50th percentile, what do they need? We'll go to the next slide.
With looking at that data that we're reporting on, it also does include pre-K. So any pre-K program that is a DCF or ELC program also looks at PM1, PM2, PM3 data. And we also have to use that data to make groups of our students who are in specific needs. We're scheduling targeted interventions and we're monitoring progress at all of our schools. We also want to go ahead and include the use of our data for our professional developments. That can include UFly and Orton Gillingham, as well as strengthening our Tier 1 strategies such as vocabulary and comprehension. And then we also have to communicate with all of our stakeholders on any student that has a substantial deficiency in reading.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's also embedded in our school improvement plans as barriers and early warning systems. We'll go to the next slide, please. Instructional alignment. Daily dedicated reading instruction in that elementary level. It's an uninterrupted 90-minute reading block. Explicit, systematic, and phonics in the early grades. Explicit instruction to build vocabulary. Increase fluency instruction, increase complexity and comprehension, and as the rigor of the standard increases grade per grade, integration of reading across all content areas, including that reading in science and social studies and history, systems of support to support student scoring below proficiency. Those students who are at a level 1 or a level 2, those students below the 50th percentile, what are they missing? What do they need?
With looking at the interventions on the next slide, we're looking at identifying those deficiencies. We also want to make sure that evidence-based strategies and resources are available for our teachers and our paras who are working with our students. We want to ensure that the parents are being notified and that they support the plan for their child. And then we also want to make sure that we're tracking the students through our system as they go K through 12.
Next slide. Funding and accountability. Mr. Smith, I know you love this. There is still a need for literacy coaches on campus. I don't think we can have enough. And, you know, until we're all reading, until we're at that 60% across our system or 70 and above, we still need more literacy coaches. We can never have enough of that. FLDOE would have to approve our CERT plan, of course. We'll be submitting that. If we get it upon your approval, we'll send it to Polk County and on to DOE. There is a need for more professional development, and if funds are available to assist with the cost of these evidence-based programs, Lake Welch Charter Schools will monitor for fidelity and implementation of this plan. You see throughout this plan how the rollout of the actual implementation and the ongoing monitoring from the district office, from the principals, from the reading coaches at the school, et cetera.
And we do that with the reflection. So we do have the reflection available from last year if you guys are interested to see what we did last year and how we did with implementing it. The principals did get together at the end of the year and did that reflection together. So it is available if you need it. For next steps, we're going to make sure that all the schools are adhering to the approved CERT. We can also, like I said, analyze last year's reflection data. We can analyze our reading data during the current school year to make those quick pivots and those changes for the 25-26 school year. And we're going to continue to facilitate communication with all stakeholders.
And last slide, conclusion. Reading is a gateway to knowledge and personal growth. Let's work together to build a vibrant reading culture among our youth in our Lake Welch Charter School system. Thank you for your attention, and we hope if you have some questions, we're happy to answer them.
Before we go into questions, I just want to say thank you to everybody that is out there that actually worked on our evidence-based reading programs. It is very evident coming new into the school district that this has absolutely been a priority for each of our schools in supporting our children, because literacy is absolutely necessary for all of our children to be able to meet their hopes and dreams. And we have to be making this a priority. It's actually an economic priority when you think about where they're going for post-secondary and onwards. Are they college, career, and community ready? So thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you for your presentation. And questions or discussions?
Yeah, I do. On page 1, towards the bottom, it says the expenditures must prioritize pre-K students who have a reading deficiency. How are the pre-K students counted in the data? Because if you scroll down to the bottom of page 2 going on to page 3, there's a chart there for pre-K programs, but there's no data. So is that included in the kindergarten data?
It is
or
not
how is
included
that
in the
addressed?
kindergarten data at this time. I do know that as we got we did get our test scores for our VPK with that, but I know that Miss Barcenas, Miss Tyler, do you do Early Star? No. Yeah, we do it for VPK only. So it would be certain schools that have that data, but we can get that for you.
I had to send in a reading endorsement matrix to the state of Florida, and they were very picky. So that would be my only concern, is if we need to add in the pre-K data.
I think we could
But
get
if
that
they've
easily.
directed you guys otherwise, I'm totally good with that. I just wanted to clarify that piece.
I think it's a lot because they're doing a lot with the funding. With I know we had to make 3 goals this year with our VPK based on our scores and our attendance for this upcoming year as well from the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't, yeah, come on back, come on back. So, I wanted to give you guys kind of a line into something that happened at our last commission meeting. Our Chamber of Commerce Director, Skip Alford, was there. He had come back from a chamber conference, all hyped up and excited because of the connections they were making between reading and economic development in a city, okay? And I don't know the specific study that they were referencing, but it was clear that a school system that put a priority on their students reading ended up becoming citizens who could read, ended up becoming citizens who could contribute to economic development in their city, albeit if they stay and encourage business growth. I don't know what, I say all that because I don't know what the requirements for coaches, or the reading coaches I think you referenced.
Yes, sir.
But I think it might be worth at least reaching out to Skip and seeing if there might be a time where you could present this and your needs to the chamber. Because I know it's a strike when the iron's hot metaphor here. I know he's very excited about this, and I think there might be an opportunity to do some recruitment for the schools in this regard, okay?
That would be wonderful. We
Okay.
would love for
And
him to.
if you need me to facilitate that, I would be happy to.
And so I think that would be great to have Ms. Conrad reach out and do that. But I also want to go ahead and encourage the city to go ahead and look at a nonprofit organization called the Third Grade Reading Campaign that has worked with cities throughout the state of Florida to increase reading. And it is free, and they have some amazing resources that the schools do in conjunction with the city.
Would you mind sending me that? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Other discussion, questions, or comments? Okay. Trustee Winfrey? No. Jamie, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. Then we are going to head and move on to number 5, which is the Lake Wales Charter System Policy on Dismissal of Students. Inviting up Ms. Barrows for this discussion. As we talk about this, also Attorney Arnold may help in this discussion as we look at a systems process within the Lake Wales Charter System. So, Ms. Barrows.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. And I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Mr. Arnold, to Russ on his team, and John, who worked with us probably for 3 or 4 months over the spring and into the summer to actually go through all of our 7 different charter contracts and look at, some of them are in the old language, some are in the newer language, some are getting ready to renew. So they're pretty much very similar, but there are some differences within those contracts. And so as we worked through that, they were instrumental as they have represented several charter districts across the state, and they've done some similar dismissal policies. We at Lake Wales Charter have not had one, so it was great to kind of pull that all together as a systems approach. So I do want to thank them, and I also want to thank Mr. Smith for working with me as we were pulling together all of that information. And I also want to give a special thanks to Ms. Conrad, who jumped right in and said, let's take a look at that. Let's look at all the contracts. Let's get in there and do that. So it was definitely a team effort. Last week, we shared it at the principals meeting and had a good discussion with that, and probably more to come with that. So what I want to touch on, in your packet, I hope you've had a chance to look through it. We have the actual dismissal policy, which is your PS 101, Pupil Services 101. And then behind that are all of the documents to communicate and document the dismissal consideration process. And they also include the steps for the appeal. We did put together a checklist which mirrors the policy, so it's a little easier to kind of go through that and not read the policy. But once you read the checklist and you go read the policy, it makes a lot of sense. So in the checklist, which is your PS 102, it has all the information for the students. So if a principal at a school is deciding to recommend dismissal consideration for a student, there are the steps for that process to make sure we don't miss any step that is in the policy if the board does approve this policy. The recommendation for dismissal, then the notification to the parents, what that includes, the actual notification, how many days for the notification, 10 days in advance, the procedural safeguards. If the student is a student with a disability, a 504 or an IEP, we must conduct a manifestation determination review, and it gives the detail on that. And then it gives you the steps for during the actual meeting of the dismissal, which is still at the school level. So step 1 of that. The committee meeting, parents can submit certain things and all that evidence is there. There's a lot of bullets under that number 4. Then step number 5, the decision of that committee, the decision notification in writing to the parent. Superintendent will be involved in every step of the process. Then if there's a suspension, if there is any reason that the meeting has to be postponed for a little bit later and there's a suspension, we can only go up to 10 days. So it speaks to that. Then on the checklist, we move to number 7, which is the appeal process. So after you have step 1 of the dismissal committee, and we'll talk in a minute about who those required members are for that first step, and then the required members for the appeal committee. So the appeal process, parents have 3 calendar days to submit their written appeal, and it gives all the steps for that. The required dismissal committee members, 1 school principal, at least 2 staff members not associated with the student, 1 of the following: a social worker, school counselor, psychologist, or mental health counselor, superintendent to appoint staff or administration from another school, and if the student is a student with a disability, the ESE director would attend, and then the required committee members for an appeal, which is a different group of people. That would be the superintendent, a board of trustee, who is not the school-based trustee asking for dismissal, a principal who's from another school, not the one asking for dismissal, and the following will attend to consult and advise, but will not have a vote: Lakeville's charter school attorney, social worker, psychologist, or mental health counselor. So that checklist kind of just summarizes the policy, and again, the documents following that are the documents that are the letters that would go home and et cetera, all of those things. Ms. Conrad?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Barrow. This has been a work in progress and a request where we be transparent when it comes to students that are dismissed from the Lakeville's charter system, and then they ask for consistency that is in alignment with all 7 of our charter school contracts. So with that, discussion or questions?
This is beautiful. So I remember being in the last, what do we call them, attendance meetings last in May, and I think I challenged you, Ms. Barrow, to get something done about this, and you did it. So bravo to you and everybody else that worked on this. This is, I think this sets us up for being able to take the next step up in the education of our children. And so I think that's all I'm going to say about that. But this, and Sean, if you're good with this, I'm sure you are. I think this is just wonderful. So thank you all.
I have a couple questions. And forgive me if I missed something. So the policy we have here, is, I assume it's in tune with Florida statute. Yeah. So, okay. The question I have, and I don't know if I'm gonna ask this properly, is more so the behaviors that are warranting dismissal, and making sure we have that streamlined across the charter schools as well, for the system. So I guess my question is, what thought have we given to that? Not just, the dismissal, but the discretion for certain behaviors to warrant the dismissal.
I love that question. Ms. Conrad, you want to
So
speak
as
first?
as we go through this process, this is the work that we're going to have to do to work with all of the schools as far as what has been leading up to this point. Where has the student or the child been entered into our multi-tiered systems of support when it comes to behaviors, and what does that look like? And as we navigate this, if this is trustee board approved in our regular session, we are going to be working side by side with our principals and our schools to navigate through this, with our goal of is we want to be serving our students and at the same time upholding standards and our policies for the Lakeville charter system.
Ken, just to add to Tanya's question and to see if you all could elaborate just a little bit more in terms of, I think I read where it said if their behavior exceeds a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, you guys have these different levels. So the question would be, does every school constitute a level 1 to certain behaviors? Is it the same across all 7 schools? Is that the same? So if Saran says his level 1 is XYZ, then Hillcrest's level 1 is the same.
So exactly, Dr. Johnson. So like when we look at our multi-tiered systems of support when it comes to behavior or academics, our definition for each of our levels or our tiers are the same across the system. Now keep in mind that there's developmental differences between an elementary student and a high school student, but that is corrected, or that is level setted for their age of the child.
Okay. So all elementary will be the same, middle school, and then of course the high school. But okay.
That's exactly, Mr. Saran. I was
What
going
did
to
you say?
add that the code of conduct, which all of our schools follow when they talk
Okay.
about, so the basis, and Mr. Arnold, please jump in, for the non-minor infractions. So this policy is not for those minor infractions, that we follow the code of conduct, and they're speaking to those
Okay.
kind of things. And I would just like to kind of add to what Ms. Conrad added. I'm so glad you talked about the multi-tiered support system. Recently, at our last principals meeting, at our social worker meeting that we had last week, and our ESC coordinator meeting that we had today, we talked about Ms. Conrad's desire to really streamline our MTSS process, not just for academic, but also for behavior. And so I think some of the things, I think maybe that you're both asking, are we just going to say, hey, we're going to dismiss the student? Or are we going to do our due diligence to say, we've done those tiers Ms. Conrad was talking about, that what tier 1 supports, or what are the classroom expectations? If they need more than that, what are we doing for tier 2? Are we giving them a daily check-in, check-out? Are we involving their mom and dad or guardian in the problem-solving team? Are we going to consult with a behavior person to come in? Are we talking with our psychologist? So all the schools really do a great job. When they have a behavior issue, if they're ESE, they call me. And we work together as a team. If they're not ESE and they're a non-disabled student, we do the same thing. So I think the push that Ms. Conrad is really pushing, I'm really excited about, because it is a system approach, and it is equitable across the board for everyone. And so I'm glad that you read deeper into that, and I hope that makes you feel better about that.
It definitely does. I do want to say, I think I will just add to what Andy said. I think
having a system-wide policy like this, and I'm sure there's more to come, that it just makes us more whole as a system. And the reason why I think I tagged on to Tanya's question is because I could see a parent, right? Our community is so involved in things, and there's so much that goes on the outside that I would hate for a parent to say that my child was dismissed for doing X, Y, Z, but then come across another child that was not dismissed because of X, Y, Z. And so that's just my only concern. But I do see, and I commend all of you for working toward having something in place, and that we're all seeking to benefit, the child in the process, that it's not just, throwing our children to the, to the wolves. So thank you so much.
Other questions, comments, or discussion? Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 6. I'd like to invite up Marcia Rose, and we have our mental health plans.
All right, you guys. Keeping with the theme of creating a system plan, right? So before you'll have your mental health plans. Every year, this time of year, you will see them. Something that is different this year is that it is a little bit more of a unified plan. So you have 7 plans in front of you, but they look identical. The reason that we are doing that, again, is just to align us as a system. And also recently, House Bill 969 was approved, which does require audits and reporting, not necessarily of just the fiscal part, but of the program part. And what we noticed in our mental health plans, while some things were aligned, each school had a little bit of something different. So sites will still be able to continue. There are additional mental health initiatives like 55 Essentials, Leader in Me, Conscious Discipline, but those will be documented at the school level versus at the district level, so that when we are audited, we're able to provide that data across the board. Questions?
Marcia, can we go into the mental health assistant policy? Because I think that
Sure.
piggybacks right on into our mental health plans.
It does. Actually, all 3 things today that I'm
Yes.
presenting align. And I do want to say thank you to Sean Arnold and his team. They did review the mental health assistance policy. This policy establishes a comprehensive system for early identification, timely intervention, and support for our students with mental health and behavioral health needs. It's aligning with state law by setting clear timelines for assessments and service deliveries. It's expanding our school-based mental health staffing and strengthening our partnerships with our community behavioral health providers. And it also is including training for staff and standardized suicide risk assessments, crisis de-escalation protocols, and family engagement. And all of those things are required in each of our mental health plans. So we have those assurances, but now we have the policy that backs it up for those assurances.
Any questions on the policy that's being brought forward, comments or discussion?
I do have one. Is this what, like we used to do, when you say staff training, we used to do youth mental health first aid, and then it just kind of disappeared?
Well, it did not disappear. Don't say that.
Right, okay.
So in all of our plans, you will see there are 4 core programs. Our Resiliency Florida, there was a statute that said there had to be mental health curriculum. Ms. DeSantis changed that, is now resiliency curriculum. And so that is being adopted by all of our schools as well as our sponsor district and across the state of Florida. So that is in our plan. CPI, or crisis prevention intervention training, which is for our staff members. Positive behavior intervention and support, which is laying that groundwork of the universal expectations that we were just talking about for our behaviors. And then our youth mental health first aid. Whenever youth mental health first aid first came out, if you're unaware of what that is, if you think of normal first aid, right, we're just putting a Band-Aid and then getting them to someone with higher skill level to treat them. It's the same thing for mental health. It's teaching our teachers how to spot someone who could potentially be in a mental health crisis and get them to the appropriate person, which would be the social worker, psychologist,
or outside resources. When we first took this, you had to renew. The state of Florida changed that, and if you have ever had it, you are good. So that's why you don't see it anymore. We still use it, but 80% of our staff has to be trained every year. We have to make sure that as a whole, 80% of us have that training. And if you've ever had it, you are counted in that number of having that percentage of us all being trained. So yes, that is still a part of our plan. So any new staff will get that youth mental health first aid.
Which is now called resilience.
No, youth mental health first aid is its own program.
Oh, okay.
Other questions, comments, or discussion?
Considering the world we live in today, wouldn't it be a good idea to train our teachers every year in this?
So we have, through our HR department, we have vector training.
Okay.
And it is an annual training of how to spot mental health needs. However, this training is very costly, and the allocation for that went away and is actually given to our sponsor district. So our sponsor district trains us on the youth mental health first aid, and then internally, annually, we train on how, for all of our staff members, how to identify a mental health concern.
We do that internally.
We do that
How do we do that?
through vector training. That's through our HR department.
Okay.
It's a video training, correct?
It's a lead. It gives you questions, and then yes. But I can tell you, our social workers, since we're very blessed to have on every campus, are with our staff all the time. They are constantly doing different trainings with them on mental health, working with our students.
All right. And the Hazel Health contract renewal.
Okay, last thing for me, again, this plays right into our mental health plans. Hazel Health is a company that last year the Board of Trustees, you approved as a service for our students. The year before, we actually were with a different contract, Good Side Health. So Hazel Health provides students with on-demand telehealth services, including mental health counseling and physical health visits, accessible directly from our school site or at their home. Services are offered at no cost to families. The Board of Trustees, you take care of that for them, removing barriers for our students who might not otherwise receive timely health care or counseling. School staff refer students with sessions conducted on campus during the school day in efforts to minimize learning disruptions or at home. And then just a little data for you. At the end of the year, last year, we had 582 physical health visits and over 250 mental health visits. And some of those continued out through the summer through Hazel Health. And so I would like to actually see those numbers increase quite a bit. So when I met with Hazel Health, we have some strategies on what that looks like, because I know we have more students in that were getting different resources, but they're just one resource. We also have contracts that are listed in the mental health plans with other community resources. So all of that being said, it's pretty good numbers, especially for our students. Maybe our McKinney-Vento students, our homeless students who may not have access to that health care. This is free on campus that they can get that.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So do we have a strategy to make Hazel Health more, or to have our families more aware that Hazel Health is available to them?
So one thing we do struggle with is they do use our student information system. Our student information system is through our sponsor right now. They also utilize Hazel Health. So how a lot of the information is pushed out is through the parent email. We've had some struggles with that with other departments, but that is something in my department as well that we struggle with getting that information out. They help us with social media posts. They're willing to come to any of our parent events. And so those are things that I work with your on-site social workers and your principals to get them here. Our nurses are also champions of this, that as they're signing up or they're bringing in that medical information in, that they're saying, hey, just so you know as well, you can do this visit, you can do it from home, you can do it from my office, wherever. So they have a strategy, and they were able to meet with Mr. Smith at I think it was February of last year, and I told them we'd be having a new superintendent coming in, and so they're eager to meet her. They wanted to be here today, and I said, let's wait, yeah, but we will set up that meeting so that we can get those strategies.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Right, moving on to our 9th agenda item, financial report. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Superintendent. Michael? Okay. Okay, good afternoon, board members, trustee members. Today, we're going to discuss the 2025-26 adopted budget that I'll be requesting your approval on. First, I'd like to thank all of the principals for their hard work. This was one of the toughest budget years that we've had in a while in terms of getting the balance. I know many of them didn't know how they were going to get it done. Melissa Art as well for working with them, as well as all of the other directors. I won't read this document all the way through, but what I'll do is I'll highlight a few of the key points through the summary page, and then there are a couple pages that I like to just kind of move through. One of the points I want to make is our revenues are actually pretty flat this year from the previous revised budget calculation that we had. If you would take a look at page 5 on the budget document, you'll see on line 22 that our increase per student amount only increased less than 1%. And so revenues were pretty flat, although we know that with inflation and other costs that everything else went up. So that was one of the reasons why it was a very tough budget year. From our narrative, our student count increased by 114 students from our official count from the 2024-25 school year, up, and not 22%, but 2.2% on that particular document. And so although we have a projection that we're going to increase our student count, we still only have an increase of $1 million in our general fund activity from our previous budgeted cycle. And that's across all 7 locations. So that's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, what I like to highlight is that we have embedded in this budget a 2% cost of living raise for our instructional staff. And at this moment, that's what's being presented to us from the teacher salary increase allocation. We initially started out with a higher amount. It was putting a heavier strain on the school budgets in order for the schools to be able to balance. And we could not get that number north of 2% without having significant cuts at the schools level on the instructional side. So we made a decision that it was in the best interest at this moment to provide what the teacher salary increase would afford us, which is around 2%. The non-instructional will be 1% of their base salary at a cap of $1,000. Pay performance will still be delayed or basically put on hold or suspended for this particular year. Our mandatory FRS contributions went to 14.03%. That was an increase also. And then we have our debt service for the end of the year. Our expenditures, although they're down by $7 million, our revenues are also down by $7 million. And if you would take a look at page 7 on our expenditure account, what we're doing is we are taking them from $69 million to $62 million. A great deal of the shortfall of that is with our capital funding. We don't have as much capital funding across the board. And we also lost some special revenue, which is our CARES funding. Lost CARES funding about $1.6 million. I won't say lost, but that kind of phased out. And then we also have some grant funds through Title II, Title III, Title I Part C, and Title IV. Also, all of those are suspended for now, which attribute to about $600,000 to $800,000. So with all of those cuts and funding going away, our expenditures are down roughly 10% or $7.2 million. Inside of those expenditures include expenses that we talked about back in the spring for a cleaning contract of $1 million that I was going to be asking the board for some assistance through the reserves. $250,000 for our ESC self-contained program at Janie Howard Wilson. Our social workers, a portion of their salaries, which is about 50%, $226,466, which is roughly 50% of those salaries. And then also one instructional position at Babson Park Elementary, an ESC position that Ms. Tyler and I had in our conversations that will support that particular location. That's $81,000. So the total from reserves that is included in that is $1.5 million or $1,557,506. That's included in that $62 million figure embedded across the various programs. Also, in that particular figure is $774,000 from the reserves. That is a loan. It's a continuation of what we've been doing for the last couple of years since we've been developing the Bach North campus, where we've actually been borrowing money from the general fund to support all of the construction costs that's actually happened at Bach North. So we are asking to kind of complete the 1919 building, $774,737 as part of a loan that's an internal loan within the system. Any questions anyone have so far?
No, I got some comments. I didn't want to monopolize the whole time, so I wanted to let everybody else get their questions out. Al Ricky actually has put up with me for the last week or week and a half with asking about 100 questions on the budget and last year's numbers. And I appreciate his patience with me as I've learned fund accounting, very minimal fund accounting. He presented it very well, and what I was going to say, I just wanted to point out, reiterate some of the things that he mentioned, is that on the narrative there that we're getting in the special revenues, 3.57 million. That's currently what we have allocated. But if you look on page 17 of your report, that you'll see there are some other fundings that he mentions that are delayed to the DOE for review. And so those may be coming in, and that may be $600,000 to $800,000 that we get in that we don't have allocated right now as revenue. So that could be a good bump for us in covering some of the deficiencies that reserve funding that we need to spend. Also, he mentioned the CARES funding that was $2 million, roughly $1.9 million that has been spent, that we had allocated, that there's no longer an allocation for that. Then on the, he mentioned the capital project for funding. It's a loan from the general fund to Bach North that will be repaid with the PICO funding and capital outlay that we receive for that. Really, if you look at the pie charts again on page 6 and 7, you'll see that the revenue is 62.783, and the expenses on the next page are 62.63 million, and that's roughly $150,000 net. But of that money is what Mr. Smith mentioned, 1.5 of general funds. We're taking out of the general fund to put into revenue, so that's our deficit spending. We did approve last year a slight deficit spending to cover the cleaning contract and a short bit of money for Janie Howard Wilson, $65,000. So we were $966,000 deficit spending last year that the board approved, and we're looking at 1.476 or roughly 1.5 that Mr. Smith mentioned this year. So that's obviously a negative trend that we're using our reserves for, but we are well over reserved as we built up this CARES money over the last 3 or 4 years. And now we've started to spend it down. So we can afford to do this and for many years to come, actually. But obviously, it's not a trend we want to continue. So I will challenge, and I'm sure the board will, the superintendent and the CFO to look to find ways to reverse this trend in the years going forward as we go. But it's a very tight budget, as Mr. Smith mentioned. The principals, I know, that they were struggling. You put in a couple of numbers and about all your money's gone for the year with just instruction. So it's been very difficult, which was why we've agreed to cover the cleaning contract this year. So going forward, hopefully there'll be some legislation that provides more funding that might right-size the ship a little bit. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware, as Mr. Smith mentioned, that we're really in a deficit of $1.5 million roughly. But we have $10 million in reserves, and we're only required to have $2.2 million in reserves. So we're well funded in reserves. That's it for me.
Well, I'm sorry. The Bach North, the activity at Bach North is truly not deficit spending because all of it is a loan. Now it's going to put a long-term responsibility on the principals to make sure that they can manage that school with having some excess revenues, because they got to pay that funding back. And in fact, they're paying it back too slowly, but we're not going to be too aggressive because the school has to operate to be functional. From a cash flow standpoint, it'll assist because obviously we won't have cash flow system-wide going out. But when you look at, and I don't want to get too far into accounting, but from an accounting standpoint, it doesn't affect our fund balance at all with respect to our overall fund balance. What it does from the general fund balance is it just restricts those funding. You know, instead of it being unrestricted where we can just utilize it, it's kind of just locked up for a little bit. And that's about $4 million. And this is many, many boards ago. So most of y'all wasn't even considering sitting on the board when, Mr. Gill's out there, he was on the board, when the board decided that they would head down this path to start another school, and that school would use, a variety of funding sources in order to get to where we are arriving at now. We had a loan with the city. Thanks to Mr. Thompson that sponsored an agreement for us to actually have a loan forgiven for the campus itself. From our funding from the state, which was a roughly $1.5 million that we got a grant that allowed us to start the 26 building. Then we had a loan from Citizen Bank for roughly $8 million. CARES funding, $3 million. And now we're at the tail end to complete this campus. It's the general fund reserve time to actually be the final source of that. And it's roughly about $4 million right now. And the school's paying it back about $250,000 a year. We anticipate as the revenues for the charter school capital outlay increases and their debt service remain the same, that they'll have more funding actually pay back those dollars a little bit quicker. So it doesn't impact us from a reserve standpoint, from our meeting our statutory requirement for what they call financial condition ratio. And I provided Brian and the superintendent our figures of where we are. So it's not so much Bach North, but it's the spending that's, that's permanent, that's reoccurring. For instance, like we will have to do something with our cleaning contract. We will have to do something with personnel costs and those associated measures. If we could go to page 5 for just a moment, I want to highlight, because this has been a big issue and our teachers are so important to us. We've tried to stay with what the legislature has provided in terms of increases, pay increases. And if you can see where, although we have less than 1% overall funding per student, one of the largest increases on the proposal is the teacher salary increase. And it's only $209,000 to be spread throughout the entire system for all of our personnel. That's not a lot of money when you think about all of the teachers that we have available and personnel. So we're trying to stay within that on this particular budget year. Excuse me. And because we don't know, where this is going, this is probably one of the lowest years that we've kind of received, one of the lowest allocations that we've received. And as Brian mentioned, hopefully next year things get a little bit better. It was important that we keep this budget pretty flat because we did know, or we did believe that we would permanently lose those additional federal funds. That $800,000 that we've been referring to is some personnel, but it's a lot of activities that's been shifted from the federal projects to the general funds. And that's pretty significant. A lot of activities that we're not able to do, we've been having to suspend some and put some on the schools' budgets. Hopefully, as we receive some of that funding, we can pull that off, give the schools a little bit more room to breathe, operate, and move around a little bit. So we didn't want to increase more deficit with increasing some of the non-recurring, some of the recurring costs, I'll say that. Any more questions on this budget? I know it's.
Yes, I did have one comment. I did want give a little context on the debt forgiveness from the city. One is, just from a standpoint of the city, that should have never happened. Everyone needs to know the city was given that building. We then sold it to the charter system. That should have never, ever happened. And so we were just correcting something that should have never happened in the first place. So it wasn't some magnanimous gesture from the city. It really was correcting something that should have never happened. We should have gifted that to the charter system without ever writing up a contract for a loan. Second thing, I don't think I understood on the capital project reduction, but it looks like it goes, I'm having trouble with my computer, so I can't see it.
That's fine.
But it's going from like 4.2 down to 1 million. Is that what I'm seeing there?
Yes, sir.
Is that because we've got a reduction in capital projects? Or is that because we can't afford the capital projects that
Are we
would like
talking
to do?
about on page 19 or 17?
Oh, I think it's on, well, I think I'm referring to what I'm seeing on this on page 6. I'm seeing capital projects, fiscal year 25.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a $2.2 million change there. What's going on there? I'm just interested.
So the way that we present this budget is our request for spending, or these are the revenues we're requesting to spend over the next year. We only need the remaining amount, the 1.9 million, for debt service for Bot North and South, and to complete the 1919 building.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I wasn't sure about. Thank you.
Any more questions, trustee members? Okay. We'll move on to the June financials. Sorry, my computer went away here. And it's frozen. Bear with me 1 second. It froze up on me as it.
Chair Unzweta? Yes, I'm proposing that we go ahead and conclude our work session and take a 5-minute break. And as we go into the regularly scheduled board meeting, that we can pick up any discussion or do the superintendent's update, the chair update, and any other updates during our regular scheduled board meeting. Would that be your will today?
Thank you.
Sure, I'm in agreement with that.
Okay. I'm ready, Superintendent.
Are the rest of the trustees in agreement? They said yes? Okay.
Yes.
So what we're going to do right now is we are going to go ahead and adjourn the work session for this evening. We will adjourn to our regularly scheduled board meeting at 5:30, and we'll pick up any discussions and questions as we vote on each of those items in the agenda.
I need IT help when
Okay.
we're on the break.
Thank you. So this concludes our work session, and we will be back at 5:30 for our regularly scheduled board meeting. Thank you.
Start the board meeting. So if our trustees could make their way. I do need one.
Yeah.
All right. So let's stand for the invocation and the pledge. Dr. Hutto, if you wouldn't mind leading us.
Okay, let's pray. Dear God, thank you for this day and just thank you for the opportunity to serve you as we serve the children and the teachers and staff of the Lake Wells system. And God, we just continue to pray for the Barnhart and Mercer families who lost some key members over the summer, not just to their families, but to this system. They've just served us all so well. God, we pray for our students and their families and just for our educators as we go into a new year, especially with some of the budgetary restrictions we have. Just help us all to remember our purpose and just to come together as a system and a family to serve the students that have been appointed to us. And God, just keep us all focused and energized and just let all that we do and say glorify you. And it's in your son's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hutto. Moving to the next item, Marie, do we have anyone to speak to the board regarding agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next item, the cell phone policy for Lake Wells Charter Schools. At this time, the chair will seek a motion and a second for the approval of the cell phone policy.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from trustee Marbut and a second from trustee Johnson. Okay. This time we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the instructional employee arrest policy. At this time, I'll seek a motion and a second for the approval of this policy.
So moved. Well, second.
Okay, I have a first from trustee Blair and a second from trustee Hutto. At this time, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to the threat management policy for Lake Wells Charter Schools. The chair will seek a motion and a second for the approval of this policy.
So moved.
I have a motion by trustee Marbut. Second from trustee Blair. This time I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the student welfare policy for Lake Wells Charter Schools. I'll seek a motion and a second for the approval of this policy.
So moved.
I have a motion by trustee Hutto
Second.
and a second by trustee Stewart. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? All right, motion passes. Moving on to the Lake Wales compliance with Florida State Statute 1002.33, parentheses 24. The chair will call for a motion and a second to approve this policy.
So moved.
All right. I have a motion by Dr. Johnson and a second by trustee Stewart. Calling for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving on to the adjunct teacher certificate. The chair will call for a motion and a second. I have a motion by trustee Marbut
Second.
and a second by trustee Hutto. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the Lake Wells Charter School District Comprehensive Evidence-Based Reading Plan for 2025 to 2026. We'll seek a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion by Dr. Hutto and a second by Dr. Johnson. All right, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Lake Wells Charter School Policy on Dismissal of Students. I'll seek a motion and a second for approval of this policy. I have a motion by Trustee Blair. Second by Trustee Johnson. Calling for a vote. All those in favor? Oh,
I've got to edit before we go.
yes, go ahead.
It's just editorial, but on the checklist, under required appeal committee members, it says a board trustee who is not the school-based trustee is asking for dismissal. So that's confusing. It makes it sound as if the trustee can dismiss a student. Because right underneath that, it says principal who is from another Lake Wells charter school, not the one asking for dismissal. If we could just clarify that language next to board of trustee.
Trustee Hutto, if you're okay, we can make that clerical amendment. If the board is okay with that, we can make that clarification.
I'm okay with that, just to clarify that trustee just cannot be the representative of that school that's requesting a dismissal. That's the language, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so real quick, my apologies to everyone. First day, right? So after, obviously after the motion, the proper procedure is to ask for further discussion. If there is some, obviously we needed to address that. So again, my apologies. Is there anything we need to do to correct that?
You just need to amend the motion.
We just need to move and second one more time.
Okay. So we need to rewind, right?
Not all the policies, just this one, right?
Just this one.
Just this one.
Okay.
Just on the dismissal.
Okay, so let's back up. So for the Lake Wells Charter School policy on dismissal, seeking a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion that we accept the policy as is and change it in the language about the board of trustee not being from the school they represent, but taking out the language of the student or, the other stuff.
Second.
Okay, so we'll make those amendments. All right, any further discussion? All right. Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, Lake Wells Charter School Mental Health Plan for all 7 schools. The chair will seek a motion and a second for approval of this policy.
So moved.
I have a motion by Trustee Marbut
Second.
and a second by Trustee Hutto. Any further discussions? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and all those opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to the Lake Wells Charter Schools Mental Health Assistance Policy. We'll seek a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion by Trustee Hutto and a second by Trustee Johnson. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to the Hazel Health contract renewal. The Chair will seek a motion and a second to approve the policy. All right. A motion by Trustee Johnson, I'm sorry, Trustee Stewart. A second by Trustee Hutto. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the Board of Trustees work session minutes for June 16th, 2025. Seek a motion and second for approval.
So moved.
Second, okay. Motion by Trustee Marbut and a second by Trustee Blair. So any discussions on those, any clarifications on the minutes? We did not review them during the work session, so. Nope, hearing none. Okay, passes. Approval of the Board of Trustees meeting minutes for June 16th, 2025.
Did you call point of order?
Yes.
I think you need to call for a vote for the approval of the Board of Trustees work session minutes.
Thank you. All right, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving next to the approval of the Board of Trustees meeting minutes, June 16th, 2025. We'll seek a motion and a second. I have a motion by Trustee Johnson and a second by Trustee Hutto. Any discussions or corrections to those minutes? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all those opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to the approval of the 2025-2026 adopted budgets. We'll seek a motion and a second to approve this budget.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Trustee Marbut. Second by Trustee Blair. Any further discussion or questions?
I just have one item to just remind everybody that we do have funds that possibly could be coming that are under review by the DOE of roughly $500,000. So let's hope that that comes in. That will help alleviate a little bit of the budget strain.
Any other comments or questions?
I think we were in a discussion on, with the work session on this.
On the budget phase, the only thing I like to add, and it's just on the budget page, is that once those resources come in, I like to discuss with the superintendent and the treasurer whether we need to come back to the board for approval on how those dollars are actually spent. We typically would bring that forward during the revised budget, but since it's so material that, possibly have a discussion about how we're utilizing those funds. It's a lot of grants that's kind of coming through, so I think it'd be helpful to have a discussion about that prior to January.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes, budget is adopted. Okay, moving on to the approval of the financial report, June 2025 through July 2025. So we will call for a motion and a second. Okay, got a motion by Trustee Stewart. Second by Trustee Hutto. Any discussion, questions, clarifications?
Yes, Chair Unzueto, I would like to invite Ricky Smith to provide additional discussion points and information at this point on the financial report, since we were not able to cover that during the work session.
Thanks, Superintendent. So what I want to do is, we've had these are the financials that we see every month. Couple things I want to highlight. during looking at the summary document, on page 1, excuse me, the consolidated balance sheet that our, assets did decrease by $5.9 million. And that is following the trend that we have, followed in many years where we actually receive revenues for 11 months and expenditures for 12. That's just the cash payment going out, where we have a buildup of cash over the first 11 months, and therefore you'll see that drop. I shared with the trustee Marbit over the weekend, many discussions about how that actually worked, and I've referenced this in the past. So that's one of the highlights that I want to make on the balance sheet. On the statement of operations, a very significant change in what we've seen, where we see our excess revenues are up by $2 million, and that's with school activities. But once we actually put the consolidated transfers ins and outs in, we have a deficit of $1,010,592. Those transfers ins and outs include all of the consolidated system-wide activities, transportation, our cleaning contract, and other functions related to that. And Mr. Marvin and I have had lengthy conversations. So overall, we finished the year very close to what we kind of requested from the board, which is $1 million of reserves in order to kind of finish the year out. So I just wanted to highlight those components. Is there any other discussions that you may have, that you'd like to have related to the June financials? And these are unaudited documents. So we're currently going through an audit, and once the report's available, I'll share that with the board members and we can go through the final audited numbers.
Anybody got anything before I get going? Okay, so, yeah, again, Mr. Smith did a very good job of going over the financials. I got to quit talking to him right before the board meeting because he steals all the comments I had. The thing was that I had, wanted to point out was that in the narrative there that he mentioned that we were right at $1 million, and that's exactly what our reserves went down. And that's what we budgeted. We were very close to what we budgeted for, so the numbers worked out good. The only thing I wanted to point out was on page 3 in the balance sheet and the fund equity, line 15, the fund balance unassigned is $11.7 million roughly. And if you go across to the total of all funds, it's 28.5. So I think that's an error in the balance sheet. And then if you total those line items down, it does not equal 27.9 million. But the 27.9 million is the accurate number if you add if the 11 was over there in the total of all funds. So I think that's an error, but just in case, just to make sure you can double check my math and all. So it doesn't affect the numbers because the numbers are accurate. It's just that line item, there's a typo there and everything like that. So other than that, the financials look good. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the approval of the personnel changes. I'll seek a motion in a second.
I don't think we had any.
Okay. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report. I'll hand that over to Superintendent Conrad.
Thank you, Chair Anzueta. I appreciate that. So for August 12th, 2025, I just want to say yesterday was my 34th first day of school and my first day in the Lake Wales Charter School System. And I had a great day, as well as everybody that I visited and talked to had a great day. My first 12 days on the job have been busy. I visited every school 2 times or more, from staff meetings, orientation, department meetings, car lines. I have been listening and learning. In addition, I have completed over 36 one-on-one rounding meetings and have more scheduled in the coming weeks. And if you're going, what is a rounding meeting or a one-on-one? I have met with every single trustee, including our teacher rep, our principals, and our directors and staff, and completing those, going through those. As I've stated before, if you see me out and about, please stop and introduce yourself. I'm excited to meet you and hear about your journey and how you support the students and families of the Lake Wales community. As I've stated in my rounding meetings, in an interview that I did a few weeks ago, my goal is by the fourth quarter, because right now we're in the first quarter, the first 90 days, is by the fourth quarter, the end of the school year, we will have a Lake Wales Charter System strategic plan moving forward and providing us direction. One other thing is that at our back to school gathering, celebration on Friday, thank you to everybody that was there and that participated, our sponsors, our very own Marie Charrington Gray for helping with those things. It was a very unique and special morning. I have not experienced a first day welcome back celebration like that. The pride and the unity that was in that room was amazing. And so thank you to all for that. Thank you for participating. And it really has spoken to me that this is the right community for me to be here and serve in as an educator. And as I said in that welcome back celebration and in my letter to our staff, our students, and our families, the best part of a great school year is when everyone is engaged. And so we need our students engaged in class, our staff engaged with our families, and our families and community involved in our school. And I'm inviting all of you to be a part of that great school year. So continuing to do that. My next thing here, as speaking of, as this proud superintendent of our charter system, is we did not have an opportunity for any questions or anything on our school reports. We do have all of our principals here, our school updates, and so I didn't know if there was any questions or anything our trustees had for any of our school updates that were in your Board of Trustee packets for the work session.
I don't have a question. I would just like to congratulate Janie Howard Wilson again on their IB status. I know a few trustees and myself have been, we were able to attend the meeting in reference to them receiving their IB status. And I think we all walked away from that meeting knowing that Janie Howard Wilson deserved to have that status. And so I'm excited that I'll be able to represent that school this year. And so just wanted to give kudos to them, but also kudos to all of the schools on their first day. I'm sure the principals wanted to pull their hair out by the end of the day, and that's perfectly fine because we can want to do that. But I'm sure it was still fulfilling like it is every year. So kudos to all of you for all your hard work on the first day. And my brother-in-law is not here, but to Devon in transportation, I just want to shout him out because I am sure he had to deal with a lot yesterday too. So, but great. I'm looking forward to this school year.
And I just want to commend all of our principals. The data that you guys all shared looks great. And special shout out to my school, Hillcrest, who invited me to their welcome back, and just the way that she used that time, not just to share student data, but to really unify her staff. For me, that kind of started my own school year off on a positive note. But as Dr. Johnson said, just congratulations to Janie Howard. I know the amount of time you guys put into that, and I'm just super proud of you. But just for all of our schools, just thank you for what you do on behalf of our students.
Great, thank you.
Okay, the next scheduled meeting tentatively is set for Monday, September 22nd at 5:30 here at Lake Wales High School. All right, Marie, do we have any folks scheduled to address the board on any non-agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chairman's report. I do have a few things to speak about, to talk about. There were some chair committees that were dissolved when Chair Gill's tenure ended, and I want to go ahead and reestablish some of those because I feel they're important moving forward. I want to start with the Audit Committee. I was the chair of that committee. I believe Ms. Thomas, Rusty Ingley, and Al Ricky were part of that committee. I'd like to reestablish that committee. Are all the participants still willing to stay in there? Okay. I feel that because of my new role as chair and obviously have a lot to learn here how to get this going. So I'm going to step down from the chair of that committee. Because I have a lot of faith in Trustee Marbit and his financial background, I'd like to see if he would be interested in stepping up and chair that committee.
Chairman, I'll be happy to. However, I'm going to have to ask to step down from the Capital Funding Subcommittee. Trustee Thompson / Commissioner Thompson was on my committee, so we'd have now 2 board members.
Sure.
So I'd like to see if, I know Trustee Thompson's brand new to the board and typically wouldn't give him a subcommittee, but he's very knowledgeable in that subject matter, and he was very helpful and more helpful than myself. I was more of the spokesman than the people doing the job, but I think if Trustee Thompson would be willing to take that over, I'll be happy to take over the Audit Committee.
Okay.
I don't know
Trustee
if I
Thompson, are you?
officially say that, but yes, I would be happy to do that.
No, good.
Okay. All right, so we'll jump up to the Capital Funding Task Force. Then the chair will be Trustee Thompson. I have Mr. Saran and Al Ricky also on that committee. Would you both care to continue? Perfect, great, thank you. All right, so I'd like to reestablish the Bylaws Committee. The chair of that committee was Trustee Stewart, along with David Fisher in the community and also Mr. Smith. I'd like to keep that committee as is if all parties are in agreement. Okay. All right. Also want to reestablish the Teachers Compensation and Appreciation Committee. The chair of that committee was Dr. Hutto. LaQuanda Burrows was part of that. And again, Mr. Smith was also part of that committee. I'd like to reestablish that. Everybody in favor to stay on it?
The teacher rep was also on that committee.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So with the new teacher rep, Trustee Winfrey, be in agreement. Okay. All right. So we'll reestablish that.
Chair Nzweta, may I
Yes.
ask a question? Is that same as the Teacher Advisory Committee? Is that one and the same, or is it different?
It's not. It's a different committee. The Teacher Advisory Committee is something that meets with
Yes,
the
okay,
superintendent.
thank you. Thank
Yep.
you for that clarification.
Okay. And yes, chairs Dr. Hutto, LaQuanda Burrows, Al Ricky Smith, and Trustee Winfrey. All right. Okay, so we're at the end of the 1919 Building Committee, and I want to thank Trustee Blair for all the hard work he's done.
Smith is the man.
Well, it takes a team, right? So for the time being, until it's buttoned up, the red ribbons on the front door, let's keep that committee moving forward. Trustee Blair, would you continue to chair that committee? Okay. Al Ricky Smith, if you would agree to continue. The previous superintendent was on that committee. I'd like to ask our current superintendent if she would be in agreement.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, that's it. That's all I have for the committees. I just want to add one further remark. I want to thank Mrs. Barnhart for inviting me to Box South Monday for the first day of school. She put me right to work, so I spent the day in the cafe handing out schedules to all the students. I loved every minute of it, but I would call it controlled chaos. So I'm going to stick to the mortgage business because it's a lot safer doing that. So, but thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to getting to know more of the teachers there at that school as the year moves on. Thank you to all our principals for all the hard work and all the effort they put in at the first day of school in their respective campuses. I know they got great things planned for this year, so thank you. All right, moving on, do we have any trustee reports? We can start down at the very end with Trustee Winfrey.
Thanks, Keith. I got to meet with our new superintendent, and that was a pleasure. And we talked about starting back a teacher advisory council, and I'm really excited about that. I think that'll be great for our board and our teachers moving forward. So I'm excited about that. And 2 schools invited me to come introduce myself to them, and that was great. Loved that. So it's been a great start so far.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to visit with all of the elementary principals except for one, and I'm going to be meeting with Ms. Barcenas on Thursday, so I'm excited about that. Middle school and high school, I'll be getting to you guys next. Okay, really quick. There's a lot about the processes up here and that I don't know, and I'm not going to waste anyone's time on claiming that I do. My biggest reasoning for wanting to be on the board of trustees, as also sitting as a commissioner, was really one thing, and that is, it's an exciting and challenging time to be a citizen of Lake Wales and the greater Lake Wales area. There is so much great momentum going on so many different fronts, and we're in a window of time, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to be seeing Lake Wales change demographically in pretty amazing and I hope beautiful and perhaps even extreme ways. And I know that's going to put a lot of challenge on our Lake Wales charter system, which is very, very near and dear to my heart. One of my biggest claims to fame, resume builders, is I was the first food service subcommittee chairman in the charter system. Thank you very much. So if you like school lunches, this is who you need to see right here, okay? We got the ball rolling on that. I was expecting more applause than that, but okay, I'll move on. So this system has been very important to me. It's been a net positive, huge net positive for Lake Wales. I'm a huge local control, home rule person. I believe Lake Wales is better because we have this system and we have local control over it. I know that it's not without its faults and foibles and problems, but I can tell you we are way better off educationally in Lake Wales right now than we were back in the early 2000s, without any doubt. And anyone who was here knew the brain drain that was leaving Lake Wales and heading to other cities. So this has been good for this community. I want to see it continue to be good. As the newly appointed chair of the Capital Funding Task Force, I am really excited about advocating and championing a community visioning process for Lake Wales Charter Schools, where we begin to deal with the hard data of what is coming as Lake Wales develops and grows. I have seen this work at the city level with a couple of different visioning processes, Lake Wales Connected and Lake Wales Envisioned. And I can tell you without a doubt, once you understand what your plan is for the future, you're in a much better place to ask for and leverage your request for funding. I've compared it to I compared it to kids who go to their parents asking for an allowance raise and not knowing how to tell their parents what they're going to do with it. We need this plan. I'm looking forward to working with the superintendent. I cannot wait to see her strategic plan for the system. I think it's going to be it's long overdue, and it's going to be critical to this community-wide visioning process that I think is much, much needed. We need to reactivate, reinvigorate our community to champion Lake Wales charter schools. We've got, I think, lots of political pressure that we're going to have to put at different levels of our government, county and state. I know that we're going to lean heavily on our legal counsel for these legislative updates on where Tallahassee is headed. And it's clear to me that they're headed towards even more school choice. I think all of this works into the charter system's favor, but we've got to come together with a plan 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What do we want Lake Wales Charter Schools to look like, and who do we want to service as a student population? And if the answer is we just want to do what we're doing, okay, that's fine. I think we're going to be missing a huge opportunity if we decide that. So I'm excited about the future. I look forward to where we're going to go on the board. If I sound like I'm coming out of the gate hot, it's because I am, and it's simply because I know what we're dealing with on the city side of things, and we've got a very limited amount of time to respond. It's not something we can't overcome, but we're going to have to get to work on it. So I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to the future of Lake Wales Charter Schools and the city of Lake Wales.
Thank you. Trustee Blair?
All right, just a couple of notes here. I just want to thank Ulrike, Mr. Smith, for leading us so bravely during the transition. So I know it was tough. So I know the board appreciates you, and I appreciate you doing that. Wow. And Ms. Conrad, thank you for coming to serve us. Off to a really good start. I just feel rejuvenated. I feel like there's a fresh breath of air blowing through our community, and kind of like what Keith was saying, and I'm excited about that. And but the most importantly, I do want to thank our teachers and our administrators and staff for hanging with us during this process. I think this kind of goes to the process that Lynn put together for choosing our superintendent. And so, Lynn, thank you for that. And, I believe in the work we're doing up here. And so I just want to encourage each one of my colleagues up here to, let's continue doing what we're doing. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have
Trustee Johnson?
anything.
Trustee
I've said it all.
I'm just going to piggyback on what Andy said, and of course, welcome our new superintendent as well as our new teacher rep and our new trustee here. And I want to congratulate and commend the trustees that have been on the board and made it through. I know it's not easy. Just the teachers, administration, and the kids, getting through a first day of school. Me as a parent, it was rough for me. So I know it was like rough for you guys. I got 3 in the system, so hats off to you all. I do want to mention, I am so happy and elated to see such heavy policy making on the agenda. It's a wonderful thing. Give me more, give me more. I think it just makes the system better that we do that. And one thing I want to mention to the chair, we did have a scholarship committee, kind of, sort of, that we can kind of revisit that, and maybe we can get that going as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Huddle?
Again, I'm excited about this school year. I met with our superintendent, and just her energy and her passion for the system, it was energizing to me. And just my interactions with principals and teachers so far, a lot are feeling that support, and they're excited about this new school year. I have to give a special shout out to Polk Avenue. We've kind of started a tradition that started before I was even a board member, me working their K days. And if you've ever worked with kindergartners, there's a special place in heaven for those people. It's energizing and exhausting at the same time. So thank you for continuing to host me for that. In my role at Warner, I've been asked to serve on the care team for Kappa Delta Pi, which is an international honor society. But the initiative we're working on is nationwide. Teachers are leaving the profession in droves. And some of the research that Kappa Delta Pi has done has shown it's not workload, it's not even classroom management, it's just not feeling heard and not feeling appreciated. So I agreed to serve on that because I felt like it could help me on my committee with the system. So to teachers, if you guys have ideas of ways we can better support you, just email me and I'm glad to have a conversation with you guys. I do want the board to continue to pray for one of our students, Claire Kane. She is actually in Germany right now. She's spending the next 2 weeks in a castle in a fast-track German course and prepping to do this next year of high school in a German high school. So if you guys would just continue to think of Claire. I have been asked to serve on our host district's advisory council, and I've agreed to do that. What the advisory council does is they just talk about, major concerns that the district has, and I feel like hearing what our host district is doing, I can bring information back to us on some of those challenges and how we can continue to better serve our students. I want to shout out Marie, my high school classmate, because she's not shouted out enough for what she does for us as a board, as well as what she does for our superintendent's office. And as I was praying, I mentioned the Mercers who passed away over summer, the husband and wife. I remember him from high school, and then Miss Barnhart. When I was doing my own student teaching, it wasn't specifically under her direction, but I had lunch with her every single day, and just her impact on me then carries forward to the work I'm doing now. So my career is in large part a testament to Miss Barnhart. So just continued prayers for her family as well.
Thank you. Is there any other business for the good of the cause?
You didn't give me a chance.
Oh, Trustee Margaret, thank you.
I guess that something to be said about being the right hand over here, right beside you. So first of all, I wanted to welcome our Superintendent Conrad. I've only heard extremely positive things, 100% confident in the decision that we've made. It was the right decision to bring her on board. Also want to thank Mr. Smith for all the work he has done as our interim superintendent this past year. As the financial guy on the board, we deal a lot together over different topics and understanding what he was having to go through and do 2 jobs for a whole year, which he's done before for us, needs to be commended. And we appreciate all you've done over this last year. Want to welcome our 2 new trustees, Ms. Winfrey and Mr. Thompson. And as you've heard Mr. Thompson's comments, you'll understand why I had all the confidence in the world to turn that subcommittee over to him. He will do wonders for us. It has become very legislative in that capital funding, and we have an expert on the board. Lucky to have him on our board. A couple of things of business from previous board meetings. We had talked about splitting the meetings up from the workshop and the board meeting to be different days. We were going to vote on that, but I decided that I didn't want to get that on the agenda because I wanted to talk to the superintendent and get her thoughts on that. It's coming in new. And also, I had mentioned back, it's almost been a year ago now, about assistant superintendent of curriculum. And I know the superintendent and I briefly talked about that a little bit recently at our one-on-one, but I want to have some more conversations on that and then get that moving in a direction if it can move in a direction. So a couple of things that'll be looking to come up at workshops, hopefully, coming forward. And then just thank all the staff and the principals and the teachers for putting in the time and the effort to get the school year going and all that y'all do for the kids, the students of the community here. It's very much appreciated. That's all I have, Chairman.
All right. Thank you. All right, any other business for the good of the cause? None, okay.